My sister didn't just empty a glass of aged red wine all over my white silk dress. She looked me right in the eye and told the security guard that the staff wasn't allowed to cry in front of the guests. But as the wine soaked into my skin, I glanced over her shoulder and saw my husband's black truck pulling into the parking area. And I knew that in exactly 60 seconds, my family's entire world was about to go up in flames. My name is Victoria. For most of my life, I've been the shadow daughter, the one who stayed in the background while my older sister, Amber, got all the praise from our parents. I'm a researcher. I spend my days in soil labs and high-tech greenhouses trying to figure out how to feed a planet that's running out of resources. It's quiet work, it's humble work, and for my parents, it was a source of deep, burning shame. Before I get into how I finally broke my silence, I want to ask you something. I'm recording this from a small, quiet town, but I know these stories travel across borders. If you're watching this from somewhere far away, tell me in the comments where you're connecting from. I read every single one. It reminds me that no matter where we are, we all know what it feels like to be overlooked. Amber was the golden child. She married a man named Austin, a high-level vice president at AgroNational, one of the biggest food conglomerates in Mexico and Latin America. Austin drove a car that cost more than my entire college education and wore watches that could feed a small town. My parents, Roger and Doris, treated him like royalty. And then there was my husband, Christian. I met Christian at a seed conference in a dusty hall in León, Guanajuato. He was wearing a flannel shirt and work boots and spoke about regenerative agriculture with a passion that made my heart skip a beat. To my family, Christian was just a farmhand. When I brought him home, my mother didn't even offer him a chair. She asked if he had remembered to wipe the manure off his boots before stepping on her rug. We've been married for 3 years. In those 3 years, my family has never once visited our home. They assumed we lived in a shack with a dirt floor. They didn't know that Christian didn't just work on a ranch. He owned Sierra Norte Industries. He owned the land, the patents, and the very supply chains that Austin's company depended on to stay afloat. Christian is worth hundreds of millions. But he's the kind of man who would rather fix a tractor with his own hands than sit in a boardroom. And me? I wasn't just a lab tech. I was the chief scientific officer of our firm. Together, we were the quiet giants of the industry, but we kept it a secret. Christian always said, "Victoria, if they don't love you when you're poor, they don't deserve you when you're powerful." I agreed. But God, it was getting harder and harder to stay silent. The invitations for Amber and Austin's wedding of the century arrived 6 months ago. It was a 4 million peso black tie event at a clifftop estate in Punta Mita. My invitation came with a handwritten note from my mother. Please make sure Christian wears a suit that doesn't smell like the countryside. Very important people will be there. A month before the wedding, the cracks started to show. My dad called me, sounding frantic. He didn't ask how I was. He got straight to the point. "Victoria, the venue is threatening to cancel. Austin's investments are tied up and we're short 500,000 pesos for the final deposit on the catering and flowers. You don't have some savings, do you? We'll pay you back when Austin's bonus comes through." I knew Austin's bonus wasn't coming. I knew from industry gossip that AgroNational was doing a massive audit because someone had been skimming money from expense accounts. But I heard the desperation in my father's voice and thought of Amber. Despite how she treated me, she was my sister. I sent the money anonymously through a shell company we use for charity. I asked the venue to say it was a special vendor bonus. Amber bragged about it on Facebook the next day. "The universe knows I deserve the best, a 500,000 peso bonus, because the venue loves my aesthetic." Christian saw the post and said, "Victoria, you're too good for them. You know that, right?" "I just want one day where we're all happy, Christian," I whispered. How naive I was. The wedding day arrived, and with it, a storm. Not just in the sky, but the one brewing on that estate. If these kinds of stories matter to you, the ones about quiet people finally standing up for their worth, take a second to like this video or subscribe to the channel. It tells me there's a community out here that values integrity over appearances. It really helps me keep sharing these stories with you. We arrived at the estate. Christian had to stay behind for about 20 minutes to take an emergency call from an international distributor, so I went in alone. I was wearing a simple, elegant silk dress. Not bridal white, but a soft ivory color. My mom met me at the door. Her face fell. "Victoria, you look nice, but there's a problem. The CEO of Agro National decided to show up at the last minute. We're already over capacity in the main hall." "Okay," I said. "So where do I sit?" She pointed toward the terrace. Outside, in the pouring rain, there were a few plastic folding chairs set up under a leaky canvas tent near the kitchen entrance. "You're joking," I said, my voice trembling. "Honey, be reasonable," my dad said, appearing behind her. "Austin's career depends on these people. Your family, you'll understand. Just stay out here until the toasts are over. We'll bring you a plate of whatever's left." I stood under that dripping tent for an hour. Waiters bumped past me. Rain splattered the hem of my dress. Then Amber came out. She looked radiant, but her eyes were ice cold. "Victoria, what are you doing? You're in the way of the serving staff," she snapped. "I'm sitting where Mom told me to sit." "In the mud, Amber. Don't be so dramatic. You should be grateful you're even here." Honestly, Austin was worried Christian would start talking about fertilizer with the CEO and ruin his promotion. She looked down at my dress. "Is that silk? A bit much for a ranch girl, don't you think?" Before I could answer, she stumbled. It was the most calculated stumble I've ever seen. The full glass of Cabernet in her hand didn't just spill, she threw it. It covered my chest, my stomach, and my dignity in a deep, staining red. "Oh no," she mocked, without a hint of remorse in her voice. "Well, I guess you can't come inside now. You look like a mess." She turned to security. "Can you please escort this woman to the parking lot? She's causing a disturbance." My parents watched from the glass doors. They didn't move. They didn't say a single word. They just turned their backs on me and went back to the champagne. I was walking down the gravel path, tears blurring my vision, when Christian's truck pulled up. He got out, looking impeccable in a tailored charcoal gray suit. He saw me, my hair soaked, my dress stained with wine, and his face went from calm to lethal in an instant. "Victoria, what happened?" I couldn't even speak. I just pointed toward the hall. Christian didn't wait. He took my hand and strode with me toward the main entrance. The security guard tried to stop us. "Sir, guests from the terrace are—" "Move," Christian said. It wasn't a shout. It was a command. The guard saw the look in Christian's eyes and stepped aside. We walked into the hall just as Austin was making a toast about success and the importance of high society connections. The room fell silent. Amber gasped. "Victoria, I told you to leave." My mom rushed toward us. "Christian, please, you're making a scene. You're going to ruin Austin's big night." But someone else was approaching. It was an older man in a navy suit, the CEO of Agro National, the man Austin was terrified of. "Christian?" he asked, surprised. "Christian from Sierra Norte. I've been calling your office all week. I didn't know you were coming." The mood shifted. You could literally hear the air leave Austin's lungs. "I didn't come as a guest," Christian said, his voice echoing. "I came to support my wife's family. But it seems my wife's family thinks she belongs in the rain, and that I'm just some farmhand who might embarrass them." Austin stepped forward, sweating. "Sir, Mr. Christian, there's been a huge misunderstanding. Victoria, honey, why didn't you say—" "Say what, Austin?" I asked, stepping forward, the red wine still dripping from my hem. "That the 500,000 peso bonus that saved your wedding came from my poor husband's pocket? That the research papers you cited in your promotion proposal were written by me?" The CEO's eyebrows shot up. "Austin, you told the board that research was yours." "It was." "It was a collaboration," Austin stammered. "No," Christian said. "It was theft. Just like the 800,000 pesos you've been embezzling from Agro National's logistics fund to pay for this aesthetic wedding." Amber shrieked, "That's a lie. My husband is a successful man." Christian pulled a folder from his jacket. the audit report he'd received on the drive over. He handed it to the CEO. I was going to wait until Monday to sign the merger between my company and yours. But seeing how your vice presidents treat my wife, I think I'll take my business elsewhere. And Austin, don't bother showing up on Monday. Security will have your things in a cardboard box on the sidewalk. My dad tried to grab Christian's arm. Son, let's talk about this. We're family. Christian looked at my father's hand like it was trash. Family sits at the table together, Roger. Family doesn't put their daughter in the mud. Victoria, let's go. We left. As we reached the car, I heard the music stop. I heard the caterers announce that the final payment had been reversed by the person who covered it. Without that 500,000 pesos I had sent, the contract was void. The lights literally went out on Amber's wedding. But here's the twist I didn't see coming. 2 days later, my mother showed up at our house. Our real house. The estate with glass walls and a private lake. She didn't come to apologize. She came with a bill. Since you've ruined Amber's life, she said, eyeing our home greedily, the least you can do is pay off the debt Austin left us with. If you don't, I'll tell the press that Christian is a heartless tycoon who destroys his own family for fun. I looked at her. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt nothing. Do it, Mom, I said. Call them. But before you do, you should know I recorded the whole wine incident on the terrace. The security cameras Christian has at that venue caught everything. If you go to the press, the world won't see a cold tycoon. They'll see a mother who watched her daughter get assaulted and then asked for a check. She turned pale and left. I haven't heard from them since. Amber and Austin are now living in my parents' basement. Austin is facing a private lawsuit for the embezzlement, and Amber is selling her designer wedding gifts online to pay for his lawyer. Christian and I went back to the lab. We went back to the earth. Because at the end of the day, you can't grow anything beautiful in soil built on lies. If you stayed until the end of this story, thank you. It means the world to me. And if you've ever been the one made to feel small or the one they tried to hide in the back of the room, this space is for you. Your value isn't defined by the chair they give you. It's defined by the person you are when no one is watching. Don't forget to tell me where you're watching from in the comments, and I'll see you in the next story. Stay strong.